A president boards a train in the dead of night, disguised, slipping through a station where assassins wait in the fog. A U.S. cabinet member reroutes thousands of government weapons to unknown southern stockpiles. Months before the first shot of the Civil War is ever fired, a secret oath sworn in candlelit rooms binds thousands of Americans to a cause far more ambitious than secession. This wasn't just a plot to preserve slavery. It was the blueprint for a new empire, one that would stretch from the American South through Mexico, the Caribbean, and beyond. And when Abraham Lincoln was murdered in 1865, it wasn't the act of a lone madman. It may have been the final move in a conspiracy decades in the making. In the volatile years leading up to the American Civil War, while political parties fractured and the nation inched toward chaos, a far more dangerous movement was quietly taking root, one not elected, not debated in Congress, and never acknowledged in official history. Its founders weren't generals or politicians. They were doctors, farmers, merchants, ordinary men with an extraordinary goal. Their mission: to create a vast slave-holding empire stretching from the American South down through Mexico, the Caribbean, and into South America. They called it the Golden Circle. What began in 1854 as a fringe group of 6 men meeting in Lexington, Kentucky, rapidly evolved into a secret society thousands strong. Its members infiltrated the highest levels of government. They had their own rituals, symbols, coded maps, and even their own treasury. They didn't just dream of expanding the South, they plotted invasions, coordinated arms seizures, and some believe played a role in one of the most infamous assassinations in American history. And yet, most people have never heard of them. Why? Because even as the Civil War ended and the Confederacy surrendered, this organization didn't disappear. It changed names. It went underground. Some claim it still exists, guarding caches of Confederate gold, protecting bloodlines, and shaping the nation from the shadows. In this video, we'll trace the full arc of this covert empire, from its ideological roots and battlefield operations to the chilling clues left behind in Lincoln's murder. The question isn't just whether they were real, it's how close they came to rewriting American history forever. On July 4th, 1854, the anniversary of American independence, 6 men gathered in Lexington, Kentucky. But they weren't there to celebrate. Led by a man named George Washington Lafayette Bickley, a Southern-born physician and fiery speaker, they came to found something radical. They called themselves the Knights of the Golden Circle, a secret organization with a mission that, if spoken aloud in Congress, would have been considered treason. Bickley's vision was both grand and terrifying: to establish a 2,400-mile-wide slave empire with Havana at its center and borders reaching across the southern U.S., Mexico, Central America, and the Caribbean. They believed this Golden Circle would secure the South's economic dominance, forever rooted in slavery. At first, the group seemed like just another fringe political club, but Bickley had something others didn't: a compelling narrative. He claimed the South's only path to survival was expansion and conquest. Between 1855 and 1858, Bickley crisscrossed southern states, speaking in packed town halls and backroom taverns. He painted the North as a tyrannical force and abolitionists as invaders. Recruits poured in. Castles, local chapters, were set up in Texas, Georgia, Mississippi, and beyond. By 1859, the KGC had grown to an estimated 8,000 members, enough to attempt their first military action, an invasion of northern Mexico to carve out a new pro-slavery territory. But Bickley failed to appear with promised reinforcements. The mission collapsed, morale sank, and then something changed. As the national election of 1860 approached and the specter of Abraham Lincoln loomed, the KGC stopped looking south. and began plotting from within. By 1860, America was fracturing. Lincoln's campaign promised to halt the spread of slavery, and to the Knights of the Golden Circle, that wasn't just political opposition. It was war. The KGC abandoned their failed Mexico campaign and shifted focus to secession and sabotage. They embedded themselves where it mattered most, in the U.S. government. According to multiple sources, several top officials in President Buchanan's administration were secret members of the KGC, including Secretary of War John Floyd, Secretary of the Treasury Howell Cobb, and even Vice President John C. Breckinridge. Floyd, in particular, played a pivotal role. Using his position, he transferred massive quantities of federal arms and munitions to southern states in the months before secession, effectively arming the Confederacy before the first shot was fired. Meanwhile, KGC activity intensified in Baltimore, Maryland, a city strategically placed along Lincoln's route to his 1861 inauguration. That's when Allen Pinkerton, a private detective hired to protect Lincoln, uncovered an alleged KGC assassination plot. The plan was disturbingly precise: create chaos at Camden Station, swarm Lincoln's train car, and kill him before he could be sworn in. Pinkerton's report claimed KGC agents had embedded themselves in the crowd, ready to strike. Lincoln took the threat seriously. On the night of February 23, 1861, he boarded a different train under disguise, slipping through Baltimore undetected. The would-be assassins never saw him. The attack never happened, but the message was clear. The Knights of the Golden Circle were no longer just planning empires. They were actively working to reshape or destroy the United States from within. As the Civil War erupted in 1861, the Knights of the Golden Circle morphed from a secret society into a shadow network embedded across the fractured nation. KGC members weren't just whispering in taverns anymore. They were now taking up arms, seizing government property, and operating behind enemy lines. In Texas, just days after secession, 150 armed knights helped Confederate forces seize the San Antonio Federal Arsenal without firing a single shot. It was one of many quiet, coordinated handovers orchestrated by men loyal not to the Union, but to the Circle. By 1863, under mounting scrutiny and the arrest of George Bickley himself, the KGC rebranded. They became the Order of American Knights, and later, the Order of the Sons of Liberty, an effort to shake off their name while keeping the mission alive. Their new leader was Clement Vallandigham, a former U.S. congressman from Ohio. Publicly, he was a critic of Lincoln's wartime policies. Privately, he was the supreme commander of an underground army of saboteurs. Their plan? Undermine the Union war effort from within. Draft resistance, prison breaks, and even coordinated uprisings in Midwestern states like Indiana and Illinois. But the most haunting act was still to come. By 1864, whispers swirled that the KGC, or what remained of it, had returned to an older objective: removing Abraham Lincoln by any means necessary. One name kept appearing in intelligence reports: John Wilkes Booth. According to multiple sources, Booth had been initiated into the KGC in Baltimore around 1859. His ties ran deep, and he wasn't acting alone. Confederate agent George Sanders, a known KGC associate, was reportedly coordinating broader plots that went far beyond one man with a pistol. Ford's Theater was simply the endgame. April 14, 1865. Ford's Theater. As Abraham Lincoln laughed at the line, "You sock-dologizing old man trap," John Wilkes Booth stepped into the presidential box, a small golden pin glinting on his lapel. Some say it was the emblem of the Knights of the Golden Circle. What happened next was not just an assassination. It was, according to multiple researchers, the final move in a decade-long conspiracy. Booth wasn't a lone actor. He'd allegedly met with KGC operatives in Montreal, including George Sanders just months before. Others from the failed Baltimore plot may have returned, this time with a clearer objective and deadly intent. But something went wrong. Booth was wounded during his escape. After a 12-day manhunt, he was cornered in a Virginia barn and shot. His last words? "Tell my mother I died for my country." Treasure hunters, convinced the KGC never died, believe descendants still guard these sites today, sworn by blood oaths to protect secrets that outlived the Confederacy itself. Some even believe Jesse James, the infamous outlaw, was the KGC's post-war comptroller, faking his death in 1882 and continuing the cause in silence. The Union had won the war. But in the shadows, the circle endured. The Civil War ended. The Confederacy fell. But the Knights of the Golden Circle didn't go quietly. Their founder, George Bickley, died in obscurity in 1867, forgotten, alone, buried far from the empire he once envisioned. But that wasn't the end. Across America, strange symbols began to appear. Crescent moons carved into stone, stars hidden in old Masonic buildings, maps encoded with gematria and geometric patterns, entire forests marked with cryptic signs. The symbols matched those found in the KGC's known rituals. In small towns across Texas, Alabama, and Kentucky, elderly men were said to keep vigil over patches of land passed down through generations. Not just any land, alleged treasure sites, said to contain buried Confederate gold, hidden by the KGC as the Union closed in. And then there's the Jesse James theory. According to some researchers, the outlaw didn't die in 1882. He faked his death with the help of the KGC. Under the name James L. Courtney, he lived quietly in Texas, overseeing the transfer of buried gold, maintaining ledgers, and recruiting a new generation of guardians. But here's where the mystery deepens. In 2013, researchers using metal detectors discovered strange patterns in Oklahoma. Buried iron boxes arranged in a formation matching a KGC Masonic symbol. Inside, nothing but rusted locks and coded documents, and a crude drawing of Abraham Lincoln with a dagger through the heart. Historians call it folklore. Treasure hunters call it proof. Either way, the questions remain. If the Knights of the Golden Circle truly died out, why do their symbols still surface? Why do modern treasure hunters claim surveillance and threats near suspected sites? And why does no official record exist of where the Confederate treasury actually went? What began as a plan to invade Mexico may have evolved into something far more enduring: a silent empire, buried gold, and a legacy of secrecy that may never be uncovered, unless, of course, it already has. History remembers the Civil War as a clash between North and South. But maybe there was a third force, one that never surrendered, never signed a peace treaty, and never stopped believing in its secret cause. The Knights of the Golden Circle may have vanished from the headlines, but from coded maps to missing gold, from whispered oaths to unsolved murders, their fingerprints linger. Maybe they were just desperate men clinging to a broken ideology, or maybe they were something else entirely, the architects of a forgotten agenda, buried not just beneath soil, but beneath layers of official silence. If even a fraction of the stories are true, then we're left with one chilling possibility. The war for the soul of America didn't end at Appomattox. It simply went underground. So what do you think? Were the Knights of the Golden Circle just another failed secret society, or something far more organized, far more dangerous, and still alive in the shadows of modern history? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you found this story as disturbing as it is fascinating, consider subscribing. We uncover the darkest corners of suppressed history every week. Your curiosity is our compass. Until next time, keep asking questions, because some ghosts of history refuse to stay buried.